live. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm
You
great.
look
How are
fabulous.
you? Long time no see. So do
So,
you.
to all that may or may not know, this is the first Sunday edition of the Cristopolis show. And on Sundays, what I'm going to begin to do is invite creatives, people of interest on the show that have had an encounter with God, that are people that somehow their faith has had a major impact on whatever it is that they do. And it's my pleasure and honor to have Christian pop star, Christian pop singer, singer-songwriter Luxe Blaine. Full disclosure, I've been married to this beautiful woman for 17 years, and I love you dearly. And I'm very excited, and I'm going to try to keep that. I'm going to try to keep it very professional because I don't want it to overshadow your career, which I'm very proud of. I think that you're a spectacular artist. I know, I think probably better than most people, all of your accomplishments and so much of what you've done that maybe people don't even know. So all that being said, thank you for joining me on the Cristopolis show. And maybe we give people, I really want to talk about your faith, but maybe we give them some context and talk about your musical journey and kind of bring them up to now. But how did you get started? Like at what point in time did you know you loved music? When did you start with music?
Well, first of all, thank you for that introduction. And I want to just take a quick second to give you some flowers because the fact that you've created this platform to celebrate creatives, I think is very incredible because as our dear friend Ryan Nichols recently reminded us, we're made in God's image and God is a creative. So when you celebrate other creatives, I think you're really doing God's work in a way because you're celebrating other people that are aligning to their divinity. So thank you for this platform and thank you for having me on it. It's an honor. So to your question about how I got started, music is in my blood. So as you well know, my family I'm blessed to be in a family of creatives. Everyone from aunts and uncles and my parents and my sister and my niece and my children and my husband. Everyone has some form of creativity, whether it's musical, writing, drawing. I have been surrounded by creatives from birth. And we have a long lineage of grandparents that are creatives. And again, just lots of people in my bloodline who are creative. So I have to pay homage to all of them because they have really been, the core of my creativity. Our blood is full of it. But I can tell you when I was little, I started as a writer. So I wrote my first full-length 365-page book when I was 11. And then just kept writing, and writing was my thing. But music is probably my heart. I just love music. It's just when I hear songs of any genre, I connect to them. I just feel the power in them. So I longed to be a musician, but for whatever reason, didn't have that
So you
blessing
wrote
until
a
much
book
later in my
before you
life.
actually started
And it was,
writing songs?
yes. In fact, I wrote a couple books, and then my dad had this old holiday guitar that was this tiny little guitar hanging as decoration in the house. I think he got it at a thrift store to get, the ladies to show he played guitar, but then never learned. And so it was like a decoration in the house, and I kept it. And when I went to college, I brought it to the room I was renting and had it as decoration in my room. But I kept wanting to play it. And again, since this is Faith Sunday, I remember before I even fully believed in God, praying one night and being like, God, I would love to write a song. Like, can you help me? And that night, I wrote like 3 songs. I kid you not. My sister's on this line and she can testify because I called her the next morning. Was like, want to hear these
So
songs
you're
I
not
wrote? She was
a
like, really?
person
You
that
wrote a song?
prayed and you prayed and then you started writing songs?
Which, again, as we'll probably get into on this call, God is always with you, even when you're not ready. So when I asked, he answered, even though at that moment, you're absolutely right. I didn't believe in God. I believed, I was what I would call an agnostic, where I felt I didn't know. And so I didn't make a claim either way. But that day I prayed and specifically asked, can I please learn how to write songs? And literally hours later, I wrote 3 songs.
And that started your music career.
It did. It did. Songs kept flooding, and 3 songs went to 20 songs, went to 100 songs, went to albums. And now I could literally write a song. You could give me a word and I could probably write a song right now. Like, it just, I'm very blessed that God has given me that.
Yeah.
That
so,
channel.
like I know you play guitar. I know you play piano. You engineer, you produce beats. You know, you make the background compositions, the music. Did you take piano lessons? Did you take guitar lessons, or was it all, you know?
So I have what I feel is a cute story about that. So when we were little, I didn't know this, but we didn't have a lot of money, but my parents were really good about making us feel wealthy, even though later I learned money was kind of tight. So I always wanted piano lessons, and there was a girl that lived in our neighborhood that would take piano lessons every day. And I would literally sit outside the house, like, now it's probably creepy, but I would sit there and listen to her practice the song For Elise, and she would do it over and over and over and over and over. And I would study the sounds, and I was like, one day I'm going to play that song. And so I kept begging for a piano, and pianos are not cheap. And one day my mom literally saw like this old piano on the side of the road that was like someone had thrown it out. And we went and got it and brought it to our house. Later we found out why it was thrown out.
No.
It was full of termites. So we had to get rid of it. Yeah, we had to get rid of it. But for like a week, I got to play that piano. And I was playing the song For Elise based on what I heard. And that's what playing by ear. And I taught myself the song, and I played it, and then we had to get rid of the piano, and I was devastated. And they got me this little Casio keyboard, which for those who know, it is not a piano. The sound is horrible. It's like, ding, ding, ding. But I would play that thing, and then they got me different lessons. They'd get me like a couple lessons here and there because, you know, again, lessons are not cheap. But I mostly was self-taught by ear.
That's fascinating. It's amazing. Yeah. You're an amazing talent. So in college, you begin writing songs, and then, you know, they keep coming to you. And then when do you start performing?
So me and my sister, who is also an incredibly talented singer, songwriter, and artist, she can draw. I can't draw to save my life, and she can also write. We all have, you know, these talents, but she and I teamed up and started doing performances together. We were a duo that we called Ceylon, Ceylon, which is the former name of the country where my mom is from, and also the name of my eldest daughter. So we ended up keeping the name because, you know, it's my heart. But for many years, I performed with her in all kinds of venues, around the nation. We performed together. We started to have some success. We got some songs on the radio, and, you know, we were doing stuff, but, you know, that came to an end at some point, and then I kept going solo.
So let's talk about your solo career. So that comes to an end, and then you begin releasing projects. You've had several albums that you've put out prior to your Christian music. Let's talk about those a little bit. So you had what was your first album after you went solo?
My first album solo was an album called, it wasn't a full album, it was what you call an EP, like 5 or 6 songs.
Mm-hmm.
You actually helped me get it done because I was a procrastinator and a perfectionist, so I wouldn't release anything. But I finally, through the encouragement of my wonderful husband, thank you, Chris, for that, was able to finish a project, and it was called Pretty
That
Prison.
album's classic.
And
that album's a lot of people's what they like. You know, it's like they're kind of like with me with Metamorphosis. It's like you could release 10 albums, but people remember kind of that project. I'm not sure why that happens, because your music, like the album you just released that we're gonna get into, is spectacular. But people love Pretty Prison.
They did, and I used my real name, Heather Renee, for all the projects prior to Luxe Blaine. Luxe Blaine was born about 3 years ago when I moved out of secular music to Christian music, because I wanted a whole new name, to be born anew, because that was very important to me, that this new phase and project reflected a new me. So, but before that, yes, under Heather Renee, I had Pretty Prison. I did a thing in 2008. I released a song every single week for an entire year. So I had several albums, like 4 albums from that, where I had 52 songs.
Heard of when you did that?
And
like nobody's ever done that. That was
crazy.
An awesome idea.
Yeah, right. I would record them and perform it and get it out like in 1 week, a song a week. And some of those songs ended up in movies. So that was a fun project. And thank you again. You helped.
I've been around for a little bit. So I think maybe a lot of people don't know about the movie that your song, what movie was your song in?
Yeah, there were some independent films, and one of them that you could probably still find, because, independent films are hard to find, is called Four-Eyed Monsters. And it was a really cute couple that were exploring independent filmmaking, and kind of made this movie about their relationship. And it was interesting for us at the time to watch it, because there were a lot of parallels to our relationship, me and you, that is. And so they ended up contacting me because they liked my music, and putting a song called Drifting in one of their episodes that was like, they would make these video webumentaries that ended up being part of the movie.
I remember how cool that was to go to, it was either Barnes & Noble or Borders, and seeing the movie there, and we bought like multiple copies. It's like when they were like $30 for like a brand new DVD, and we bought like all these copies of it. That was a big deal. That was really cool. You've been on big stages. You've done hundreds and hundreds of shows across the country. You've performed at RFK Stadium before. What was that like?
The national anthem. So hard. I have so much.
Was it like in the middle of
singing
the
in stadiums, because you can't hear. You get in the middle, and it's so reflective. You just hear this echo. So you're just like, I hope I'm on key. I hope I'm singing the right words. You can't hear anything except this echoing loudness, because the microphone reverberates. So you almost have to close your ears. Like, I think if I could do it again, I would have put earplugs in so that I could just sing. But I had nothing in, and so I heard all this echo. So anyone who's doing a stadium singing gig, you need to put your earplugs.
You've been on, you've done so many hundreds of shows that it's hard to really put it into context. But you were essentially doing 1 to 2 shows every week, for years and years and years, all around the DC area, to include areas like Maryland, Pennsylvania. We did a lot of shows together and on the college circuit tour. You've performed at the Kennedy Center. You've had a pretty amazing career, but there comes a moment in your music career where you decide to change up kind of what you're talking about. And how does that come about? How does the journey come about?
So I already mentioned earlier, I was an agnostic. So I didn't know if God existed or not. And then I went through a very dark period in my life, where God manifested for me personally in a way I could relate to and helped me out of that dark period. And it was so obvious that it was God and not me. It was actually an entity outside of myself that helped me, that I couldn't question the proof. I'm a very logic-minded person, so it was hard for me to believe in a concept like God, especially a benevolent, loving God that cares about you. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But then it happened. Like, God helped me through a very, very horrible period of my life, and I couldn't deny. I was like, well, that wasn't me, so that's got to be. I had an actual encounter. And so after that happened, I couldn't unsee it. Once you have an encounter with God like that, I don't know how you can put it back. You can't put it back in the box. And so once I felt and saw that, it just transformed my life. Like, I couldn't go back. I couldn't be who I was before, including my music. Like, I couldn't be just a secular singer, because there was so much that I felt I needed to share with the world to help other people struggling and maybe in darkness themselves trust and know that there is something there that they can call upon. They're not alone. And that became like so important to me that I changed my whole sound and focus.
Yeah, your music was never kind of like in the club, booty shaking music, right? It was always like about love and things like that. So it was never really truly like super, super edgy. But now the message in your lyrics revolve around faith.
Yes. And truth be told, it took me a really long time to be able to say the word God. I was that would say universe and be spiritual. The word God had a lot of stigma for me. Jesus, those words were very disturbing, and they would trigger me in a sense, to feel like, you know, I'm not that, because I had been hurt by people who were quote unquote Christians or godly. And so once I was able to reconcile what was what, understand that people are flawed, but God is not, and that's the focus, I could really understand, you know, how like how it all worked. And so I got so much peace from that. And again, just having that, I want people to have the same awakening I had. There's, you know, this thing where Christians always say they want to spread the good news, and it sounds kind of crazy to non-believers, because it's like, you know,
chill out,
calm down, like, why? But once you feel how that can transform your life and you see evidence of it, you can't help but want to tell all the people you love about it, because you want to help them. Like, it's almost like seeing people suffering and you know what could help them. And so you're in this quandary of like, I don't know how to help you, because I know there's a stigma with talking about God, and I don't want you to think I'm crazy and weird, but this will actually help you.
So you went from a person that essentially was a good person, and I know you were very much into like bettering yourself, you know, like personal development, and you've always been a very kind person, but you didn't necessarily have God in your life. And then, you know, you went through some challenges and adversity in your personal life, and essentially had an encounter and found God, and it impacted you in such a way that you made major life changes to include how you present yourself to the public creatively, and that's the birth of Luxe Blaine.
Yes, very much so. And you know, it's not enough to be a good person, but I didn't know that. I thought just being a good person and loving and kind was enough. But, you know, I'll explain this concept as quickly as possible, you know, to not go into the weeds, but a concept like God is so big, right? We're in a physical realm with these physical brains talking in language that is very limited. How do you like take something that you can hardly comprehend and speak about it? We're talking about an entity that's everywhere all at once, has always existed and always will.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, your brain hurts. So simplifying it, God is all those things, right? And God can manifest in a way you can relate to when you need it, and does, if you ask for that. But God is love. And then the question is, well, what is love? Love to me is a very, very high frequency of energy, for lack of a better word. We're using human terms. But when you get something that's that powerful and resonating at such a high frequency, think about like thousands of atom bombs worth of energy, just like resonating at high frequency. That's hence the Big Bang. It's like it resonates so high that it explodes and creates all that is. And it's all based on this energy, love. And then as you in this human realm start to experience that energy, you feel love. So you see a puppy when you're crying and it makes you feel like your energy goes up and you're like, I love. You help someone out and it makes their day and you feel like this increase in your frequency. You're aligned to love. You have a child that you just love it no matter what it does. Your frequency raises. You feel love. So the more you raise your frequency and align to what I call love, the more you are experiencing the world in such a beautiful way that actually is not painful. It's blissful. But then when you do things that aren't aligned, those are things that you would call sin, I guess, in the Bible. Actions that are not aligned to this higher frequency of yourself. Now you get disconnected. So you feel very dark and empty and lonely and you're scared and you don't know why you feel so blocked. Well, that's why in the Bible, a sin like gossip is as egregious as murder. Because a sin is a sin is a sin. It doesn't matter what the action is. It's just what's blocking you from that energy. What's lowering you back down. And the more you lower yourself back down, the more you disconnect. So that to me is the whole concept. So again, it's not enough to be a good person and just do good sometimes. You have to like hold yourself accountable to this spiritual maturity, so that when you gossip, you're like, oh, that's a sin. That actually lowered me back down. I got to raise, you know what I mean? I got to be accountable for these little things, these daily choices. And as you become accountable, your life transforms. You become so confident and so free. And that is the message, I would say, of Jesus and the New Testament, Christianity, which I follow. But it's complex. Like, am I a Christian? I don't believe in the Christian religion. I believe in Jesus's message, which is profound, which is love.
You're dropping all the jewels right now. So you have this life change, and you're working on following Jesus's message. How would you say does that impact your music? What's the process for you? Like, is it different now when you sit down to write a song? Do you look for inspiration different? Do songs hit you different? What is, from a secular artist that, like I mentioned earlier, your songs were always about love, but they were also about like heartbreak and things like that. But now your music is Christian music, and so it's every song has a message in it that is related to your faith. Is the process of creating faith-based Christian music different in any way from when you would create secular music?
that is such an important question, because it is, you said something key, it's a process. So, you know, when I first started understanding these really, really big concepts, I didn't know how to pray. I mean, I have a song that's going to be coming out on the new album called Faith Over Fear. And the first lyrics are, God, I need you now, but I don't know how to pray. Because I had no idea how to pray. I didn't know what that was. I wasn't taught that. And so how do you go from that to like aligning to this energy that you know exists? And I think innately we all know it exists, but we're just kind of like somewhere on the spectrum in our spiritual maturity. So when I first started writing, I had a lot of disconnection with God, where I was figuring it out and I was spiritually immature. And so sometimes I would almost be mad at God. I'm like, I don't feel you. What is this? You know, you showed me your, like, that you were
You
real, and then you go away,
and
it's
have
like
that connection, but it wasn't always as strong.
Yeah. No. And there were moments of silence. I'm like, what does that mean? I'm praying. I'm trying to pray. Am I not doing it right? So you go through this process of all of these things. Ultimately, I can only speak for myself. I came out of it understanding so deeply the whole thing, and that I had so much need that needed to be fixed, and I needed to be made whole through this God filling me and giving me a sense of peace that I used to seek through external forces, through, you know, a myriad of things. And we all know what these things are, you know, addictions, spending too much, you know, the world of man. Like anything that you can get in this existence that you seek out, if you're going crazy over those things, it's because you are not whole. And once you get that peace and you go through the process of prayer and learning how to have a relationship with God, then you get a confidence and a completion that I can tell you I've never had anything help me as much as this. I've gone to therapy for things, I've tried medicines for you know, aspects when I've dealt with issues in my life. Nothing has helped like this. And I will also say, I ended up, when I first started, I read the Bible cover to cover, which is not an easy read.
The big book.
I break it up in chunks. If you want to do this, they have an Audible version. You'll have to like listen to it. It takes a while. It takes months. But I highly recommend you doing that, because a lot of people who are maybe sharing the gospel, if you read it yourself, you'll start to see where maybe they're interpreting it a certain way that isn't how you can read it. Like, I highly recommend you read it for yourself before you take what people say to you as gospel, because a lot of the things I started to read, I started to realize that's not always taught that way. You know, things are, you know, taught in a certain way for a certain purpose. But if you read it yourself, you will have such an understanding.
Thank you. That's awesome advice. Have you released music as Luxe Blaine?
Yes. So I just released an album, actually a couple months ago, I think it was, as Luxe Blaine. It was my first full-length album as Luxe Blaine. So I had done a couple singles, but now this is a first, you know, full-length album. It's available on all the platforms, on Spotify, everywhere. And that album is interesting because it has some of my secular songs and some of the Luxe Blaine, you know, transformation songs. But it's very much, again, a process project where you kind of see where I'm starting to ask these questions in my songs, starting to try and figure it out, and then I come out on the other end, you know, with my faith. But the album is kind of a mixed bag of as I was figuring out my faith journey. The new album coming, which I know we'll get to, is going to be much more cohesive in terms of it's a Christian
it's good that you
album.
bring that up. So the first Luxe Blaine album, what's it called? Okay.
It's called Flawed.
You know, some people, because we live in a period of time where like everything's you know, the attention spans are smaller. So if there was, you know, maybe 2 or 3 songs that you were like, hey, you know, 80/20 on that album, right? Like definitely check out these songs. Like check out the whole album, Flawed by Luxe Blaine on all, you know, digital streaming platforms. But if you had to direct them to 2 or 3 songs off of the Flawed album, what would you recommend is a good kind of like starting point for Lux, you know, for people to get to know Luxe Blaine who don't already know you?
So the song Flawed on the album, which I named it after, what I like about that song lyrically is it talks about, I was a people pleaser, and I really struggled with how to help others. And then as I found God and my faith, I learned that there's so many things that God is supposed to help them. And I was oftentimes intervening in people's lives in a way that I thought was helpful, but later I learned I was getting people to rely on me instead of the source, the right source. So that song Flawed is about that. Like, I'm flawed too. Like, I'm just a human and I shouldn't be intervening in areas like that. You know, it's okay to be there for people and give advice, but honestly, what I've learned in my faith journey is so much of what you live in this life can be answered by prayer and going to the source. If you're going and seeking advice from humans, you will be let down continually and given the wrong and led astray, not because people are trying to do something bad to you. It's just they don't know. They don't know what's right for you. I had to learn that lesson, and that song Flawed definitely shows that. There's another song called Searching that's kind of an upbeat, fun one. But again, it's about how I spent all this time looking for this something. And I felt so empty. And then, you know, I find it. So Searching is about basically like searching for God. Yes. That I've been searching, but it's always been there with me the whole time. And so that song. And then Ashes. I love that. I did the production on that one. It's very, I produced Ashes, and Ashes was like kind of tribal sound, drums. I love drums. And I wrote that one kind of on the spot. Sometimes that happens to me where I get inspired, and I heard this drum loop, and the whole song just came out. And that song I really like because it's really about, you know, the torment of being pulled to the secular world while you're trying to, you know, like stomp out this flame inside of you that's leading you to do things that you don't want to do anymore. You're trying to like level up, but you're kind of in this quandary. So Ash about that again, my process of trying to live transform
as a Christian. And how hard that is.
Not easy. It's so hard. Living as a Christian, again, it's that accountability issue of little things. When I first started, I used to be very sarcastic, and I thought I was funny, and it was so fun to be sarcastic. But little things like that, you start to learn you hurt people sometimes. What seems to be innocent jokes, you know, there's a lot of truth said in jest. So I had to really analyze a lot of the things about myself that I had accepted as this is just who I am, like love me or hate me. But I started to really dig deeper and want to align to God, align to love. And so there were a lot of times where in our marriage, with my children, with my friends, I started to notice that I had a lot of work to do. That that I would judge people and I didn't know I was judging. Like, you know, you think even little things like looking at someone's outfit and be like, oh, what was that? And saying something sarcastic. Those little things add up, and over time, it's who you are. And so these little course corrections are so vital to the transformation. And that is my everyday. And sometimes I'm really great at it and sometimes I fail, but it's knowing that you want to, again, elevate your frequency and be spiritually mature.
So as you got deeper in your faith, you identified personality traits that's not Jesus.
Yeah. That's not Jesus. There's a funny sticker where
right.
it's like a picture of Jesus and it says, I saw that. And you can like put it places. When you become a Christian, it's like that. You almost feel like Jesus is like, I saw that. Because you feel totally like, because you can't lie to yourself. You know what I mean? You can like put on a show for people, but God knows your heart. And at the end of the day, when you're saying your prayers, you know what you did. You know when you're wrong.
I think that the first album that you've released of Luxe Blaine is a spectacular album. It's a true full-length album. How many total songs are on there? It's a lot. I know when I was listening to it, like when I was doing research for this, and I think, but it's a lot.
I think it was like a lot though.
Yeah,
it's like 20.
There's a lot.
Like,
it's a very robust album, but I think The Ashes is one of my favorite songs on that album. Oh yeah, I really love that song.
Yeah.
I love the way I like the drums. I like the tribal sound, but I also love the inflections in your voice that you do. That's really, really cool.
There's a song that's not on there though. I need to call it out because Roberto, who I don't think is on the line, but my sister is, did this incredible music video for it called Light. It's one of my actual favorite songs, but it actually got picked up. So there's a label out of LA that wanted to feature it on a mixed CD and mixed music project that's coming out next year. So it's not, it's actually normal pop. And the guy wrote me specifically and said, I usually don't put Christian music on here, but that song, he had gone through his own personal encounter with God, and he wasn't a Christian. And he said that he heard that song, ironically, right in a time of his life that he was awakening, and it moved him so much. And so he wanted to include it. And he said he shared it with the team. And even though the album is secular, they were like, please, can we include that? So that's coming out next year. So I had to pull it off of social media and stuff. So I can't share it out now, but that song, when it comes out, I'll share it with you guys. It's called Light. Some of you have already heard it, but it's going to come back out next year.
Well,
as awesome. Part of this compilation.
What is the next Luxe Blaine project? Does it have a name yet?
Yeah. So it's called Faith Over Fear. And it's based on the title track that I talked about, Faith Over Fear. There's a song on there that I really love called Mustard Seed. You could see it on my page. That's actually available on Spotify, but it'll be part of a large album. There's several other songs that I'm excited about that are coming through. Like, you can see snippets of some of them on my page, on my Instagram, where I've like shared a little bit. But so yeah, new album coming soon.
2023 project.
Yes.
Right.
Well, that's the goal. Right. God willing.
That's awesome. I'm excited too. I think that you're a very talented producer, very talented guitar player, and you come up with the coolest riffs on piano and on the keyboard too, and then you sing beautifully. So I'm looking forward to it, selfishly. When you first started as a creative, you were a writer, and I personally know, yes. and I think I plugged in the intro video that you've written books, you've written young adult books. You've written other types of books. You have things that are available on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. You've written children's books. Are there any faith-based writing projects that you're working on?
I am working on a book that is faith-based. But I don't know if it'll be released while I'm alive. And I know that sounds strange.
I hope you're not going somewhere.
But I feel like to release a book about faith, you have to walk the walk. You have to be the example. So I don't want to release a book unless I have proven that I could do it. I don't know how to explain that, but I feel like it's going to be a project I probably release when I'm very, 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 very old, and I've had my whole life to tweak it and really hold myself like up against that mirror. And when I release that book, that will be kind of like my gift to the world of like, this is what helped my life. So I will be the example of if it worked or not. And then whoever gets it after I die, I hope it blesses them. But it's kind of the secret project that I've been working on for several years, that my goal is to just work on it through the course of my life and then release it probably posthumously. What's that word? Posthumously? I
don't want to learn
after
that
death.
Word. I don't even know that word. I know what it means, but you in that word, I don't want to combine it. Because you're always writing stuff down. You're avidly reading. You're a researcher, and then I'll be chilling with you, and you're always like randomly like, you know what I mean? And like I love it. I think it's cool.
In the morning, like
you were doing it today, and I think it's cool. And I know you're very creative, and you always have projects that you're working on, and you have magnificent ideas. And I was just curious if there was something in the pipeline that you were working on that's like a Luxe Blaine project or something like that. So you're a woman of many talents. One of them, which I think maybe you don't get enough acknowledgement. You're pretty, a lot of people, especially people who know you, know about your music. They know about that you're an author. A lot of people, I think, are not as familiar with the video work that you do. Essentially, like, you're a writer, so you've storyboarded. You've storyboarded and written, essentially, and planned out dozens of videos. You've come up with. You've done web series, you've done, reality TV shows, you've done numerous music videos for yourself. You've planned things out for me. So you're very creative, and that creativity is not limited to books and writing songs. You've written essentially screenplays, or at least, you could give credit enough to say you've storyboarded out projects that you've then turned them into video projects. Have you thought about, like, you're on this faith journey, and you had an encounter, and it was so pivotal in your life that, you wanted to make sure that your music and other forms of creative expression reflected that encounter. Have you thought about like doing anything through the visual medium also?
So it's funny you should ask that. Going back to the beginning of this interview, when I started and I prayed and God gave me those songs, ironically, those songs ended up becoming a musical that I finished. It's called Samson and Delilah. And it was interesting because I wrote this musical like in the span of a year, but then I didn't know what to do with it because I wasn't a Christian. And it was a Christian musical about this Delilah who is not a Christian, and she's in love with Samson, who is very faith-filled, but tormented by his carnal side. And so she doesn't understand how he could love something beyond her. So I really resonated with Delilah in the musical for many, many years, but I couldn't ever like get it done. And now that I'm a Christian myself, I feel like that was God holding it to wait for me to mature spiritually. And now, ironically, I pivoted, and now I'm totally understanding of Samson's side. That musical, I went back and reviewed it and had to modify my perspective of it. Because when it was first written, it was almost like an anti-faith piece. Because I didn't believe.
You understood Delilah.
But now that I believe, I've had to go.
Delilah.
I understood Delilah, and I wrote the whole musical from her lens. And then when I found my faith, and now that I'm a Christian and I follow Christ's message, I had to go back and look at those songs and what the story was saying. And I was a little bit like overwhelmed because, you know, the story, I didn't relate to Delilah anymore. I understood her character. She was very robust and real, but I now understood Samson. So I had to modify it to kind of build in this dichotomy of these two sides, one that doesn't believe, the other that does, and how they fit together and what that means. So the musical to me now is a work of art. It now fully shows both sides. So the video projects I'm learning certain skills secretly. It's my hidden agenda. My goal is, before I die, to create a video version, like some sort of like reenactment of the musical, so that at least if it never makes it on stage or Broadway or wherever, at least it's captured so that people can see it and produce it in whatever way they see fit. But I would love to get out of me what I see this musical to be. But to do that, I need some sort of visual medium. And so the videography has been something I work at behind the scenes to get good at, so that I can showcase that musical.
That's awesome. And that the fact that you wrote it from one lens and then through your life journey, you personally have changed it. So when you revisit it, you understand the other character and have to basically kind of, you know, rewrite parts of it for it to fit where you're at today. How long have you worked on Samson and Delilah? So this is a 20-year project that you have going on in the background, separate from other books you've written, other music, gigging all the time, and, you know, winning at life. You have this kind of like Magnum Opus that you're working on in the background with this.
That's correct. And that's a great way to say it. It's a Magnum Opus. It's such a personal reflection of what my journey has been, that it's such a blessing to have that project. I hope the world can see it. I have seen it, and it is my best work. Wow. For sure. Wow. Hands down.
Is it written for theater, or could it be a movie? Would it need to be adapted to screenplay?
It's written for theater, for the stage. It could be adapted in a screenplay. Again, my vision for the video side would be to probably do in an artsy way a rendition of it. So at least conceptually, people can see it, and then someone who has those talents for bringing things to the stage, you know, Lin-Manuel, you can like take it and, you know, and do what you do best, which I don't have that skill. Like, I didn't grow up in the theater to know how to even do that. I just know that I have this musical that's so powerful that needs to get out of me and out to the world, for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We talked about your 2023, you know, new Luxe Blaine album. we've talked about Samson and Delilah, which I'm excited about, and I know that you're always busy working on that. We've talked about some other written works that you're working on that that those are currently a work in progress. Is there anything else that things that you want to plug or that you want people to know about that we haven't had a chance to cover yet?
No, I think that, again, I just wanted to celebrate you for doing this, creating this platform. I think it's very helpful. And thank you, Paris. I see several friends have joined, and it means a lot that you guys have supported us, and we love you. We miss all of you. And we'll probably be reaching out to different ones of you if you want to come and share your faith journey on Sunday with us. We'd love to hear about it. So that's what I'd like to plug is this is a collective. Like we came here to Los Angeles to create what we call a creative society, because we believe in creatives and people tapping into their divine power. And so having multiple forums where we can share and celebrate each other and let that out, I think is what I would like to leave in this video. Is we're the place to come if you're lost and you're creative and you don't know how to get encouragement, inspiration, or where to start. Contact us, because we will give you love and we will give you a hug and we will let you know okay to be you.
If people want to know more about Luxe Blaine, if they want to find your music, if they want to find you online, what places do you live online?
So I only am on Instagram, Facebook, and I have a website and YouTube, but TikTok, all that, I'm sorry. I'm not there. So you can go to luxeblaine.com, luxeblaine.com, and find all my links. So you can find my website has all my music, or you can it'll have links so you don't have to look each one up. But luxeblaine.com is the best one. And for those of you wondering why Luxe Blaine, Luxe is like deluxe and I'm extra. I like things that are deluxe and beautiful. And so that's that side of myself. And Blaine is another word for yellow. And so I had to put them together, my two favorite things. And yes, Paris, Luxe Blaine is on Spotify. There's one album that I just released called Flawed. And so if you look up Luxe Blaine on Spotify, you'll find it. I'm on all the platforms, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you hear Tidal.
Thank you. Thank you for being my first guest on the Sunday edition. Thank you so much for sharing with us your faith journey and how having God in your life, the change and the impact that it's had on your creativity. I'm excited about new Luxe Blaine music. I'm excited about whatever written work you do, because I think you're an excellent writer. And I'm really excited about Samson and Delilah. And I hope that I can't wait till that comes out. Whether it's in the immediate future or near future, I'm excited about it coming out. We're in Hollywood, so let's make it happen.
Yeah. Any screenplay, theater people,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I'll see you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Love you.